Who's going first? Somebody's got photo. Who's got them?
Which one are you? He knows, see now, or do know? Where are you?
Dumbo. Okay, 17th of January 1977. Really old salt. Joined the Navy, went to this place, HMAS Creswell on Jarvis Bay or Royal Australian Naval College. Great spot if you're not in the Navy. Spent 3 years there doing academics and some Navy stuff before I finally got to go to a real ship. Well, almost a real ship. It's HMAS Stalwart, commonly known as Building 215 because it never went to sea. Escort maintenance ship. So basically the idea is it's a floating workshop. Destroyers and destroyer escorts come up alongside and they could be assisted with the maintenance and refits that they're actually doing. When I joined, and the reason we joined was because she was in dry dock in Cockatoo Island and they needed someone to drive the boats so that there's no public ferries to and from Cockatoo. So they wanted someone to pick all the sailors up in the morning commute and then drop them back at all the wharves around Sydney Harbour. It's quite interesting because you didn't go to sea much, the boats didn't get used. So they used to hang in their davits from one commission to the other, and so they weren't very mechanically reliable, and everything was not smooth, but rather stiff. And the throttles, you had to tap them because they were very jerky. They weren't smooth operating. So we had to change a captain when I was doing that, and as a brand new midshipman, had to go and pick the incoming captain up from HMAS Waterhen and drive him out for the change of command ceremony. That went well enough until we got on board, did the boat hook drill, chucked him a goffer, all that sort of thing. He's down the stern of the boat in his safari suit, Joe Cool. So we're up on the plane coming out of Waterhen, and there's this line of flotsam. I could see some sizable blocks of wood in it. And I thought, with these boats, I'm either going to punch a hole in the hull or it's going to root one of the propellers. So I'll come down off the plane. So I started to pull back, nothing, then suddenly, whoop, all off. And of course, the boat from on the plane up here like this just went nose in, straight up like this, and Joe Cool down the back, a bit of a squeal as he comes scuttling down between the engine covers, grabbed the rail on the Dodger up the front and went smack with his teeth right into it. I thought, how to win friends and influence people, especially your new captain. So got out to Cockatoo Island, and he didn't say much. In fact, he said nothing at all. He just stormed off. And I was very slow parking the boat and coming back to the ship. And there they were. There was the CO, the XO, the seamanship officer, the boats officer, and they all wanted a piece of me. So side closing paces, one after the other. Being a midshipman sucks. Oh dear. Anyway. Next ship was HMAS Yarra, destroyer escort. Did RIMPAC 80 on her. Very tight for accommodation, like we actually had to sleep in stretchers on the wardroom floor in the mess, which is great until you have a night watch and you get into bed at 4 a.m. But 4:35, the stewards come in, and so you get waken up. There is no sneaking a little bit of extra time. We were up on the forecastle, and there's a bit of spray, so there's a bit of water on the forecastle, and coming back there, landed on my arse and just slid straight across the side and managed to catch the rails there just above the turret. And it was actually dangling over the side. So Next one, HMAS Melbourne, and I was actually driving the ship in that shop. So I'm the last man to get his bridge watchkeeping certificate on a carrier. So did her paying off cruise. And the RAS approach, so yeah, you can see the wake there from it. Was actually Supply, was the ship we were doing the approach on. We didn't have to take on fuel, it's just one of those things you do to intimidate junior officers. Once I got my ticket and Melbourne was back in port, I got to go to Cairns and join HMAS Flinders, White Navy hydrographic. Was actually doing hydrographer's passage out of Gladstone, which took 4 days off the trip to Japan. Seeing as it operated mainly in uncharted waters, you didn't do anything at night, you just dropped the pick, and that was good. But the derrick there on the bow has got a big light on it, so the morning watchman used to have to swing that out over the water, turn the light on, and go jigging for squid. You have fresh calamari for breakfast, and that's the only way to have it. The stuff you get in the shops is crap. Some places there, like near Scorefell Island, if you shine the signal projector out over the water, all you see is the glint of all these eyes out there. Yeah, yes, we're definitely in croc territory. And that was about 120 miles off the mainland, so they get around.
What's the story with the dodgy hair that just at the time?
No, that's where the anchor is. Stem comes up, out horizontally, and the anchor's there, and then the bow continues up. So it is, yeah, sawtoothed. It is sawtoothed, yeah. What? Okay. 17th of January 1977. After that, I went and spent 12 months failing the pilot's course. We got the top 4 weeks before the end of, or before wings, but had a lot of fun in the meantime. From there, this was my next ship, as she is now. Dive wreck, HMAS Swan. It's a good ship, weird captain. He was there for a good time, not a long time. So it was party, and you wouldn't believe how much he could drink. Went from pilot's course, drove my car back to the east coast to where my parents were, changed some gear, drove from there to Geelong, joined the ship there, and then went back to Perth. Then we went north. HMAS Launceston was XO on her for 18 months. Made the mistake in saying, yeah, I wanted to do patrol boats, but then didn't specify I wanted some tropical climb. So, so they took full advantage of me, and I ended up on a Sydney-based boat, bouncing around oil rigs in Bass Strait and occasionally heading off into the Bight to board Korean squid boats. And it's amazing. The squid boats, they just have reels with square reels, so the line jerks. So put their floodlights out over the water, and the squid come up underneath the boat, and when the lures jerk up, they come out and get impaled on it. The lines are on an angle down into the ship, so the squid then fall off. They fall into a gutter with running water and get swept down, and they just hold the trays there and fill up with squid and water, and then push into the freezers. And cold, you go down to inspect the catch there, and half the time you've got to go down the chute and then pull up, and you think, yeah, I hope they're on my side when I'm on my way out, because you're not getting out on your own. And so cold, your wet weather gear turns crisp. And the hair inside your nostrils freezes. You can break it, just snap. It must be about 20 or 30 below down there, really cold. This one's HMA's Dubbo. When they built the Fremantles, they sent consecutive builds to consecutive ports. So you end up with the first 4 in Sydney, the next 4 went to Cairns, the next 4 to Darwin, and I think we had 1 or 2 over at Stirling in Perth. And that meant that at certain times, each squadron would be reduced to 25% strength because you have 1 ship in refit, 1 working up, having just come out of refit, and the other one running down or on its way to refit. So they could see this didn't make a lot of sense, so they decided we'd do what they call a hull swap. So all the patrol boats went to Cairns and mix and match. And you can imagine what a nightmare that is with all the permanent loan lists, all the bedding, everything else like that that had to be changed over. We had, each of them has a ship's fund, which is used for the benefit of the troops on board, and it's funded from the profits from the ship's canteen. And of course, no one wanted to hand the money on to them. So there were 4 huge farewell parties in Cairns one certain night. And sobriety was a rare category to be in. When at 3 o'clock in the morning we all got turfed out of our racks to sail because Cyclone Winifred was coming in and we had to run. And we're all in new boats. You don't know the peculiarities of it, where to slap the radar in just the right spot to make this work, or the gyro. Nil visibility, pretty well pickled just about everyone on board. On our way out of Cairns, in minimum visibility. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Got away with it. That's believe it or not, an oil rig. That's Barracuda. That's in Bass Strait on a good day. I've seen it go from as flat as that to 4 metre seas in 4 hours. You get a front coming through, and it's amazing how fast it can build. You're on a patrol boat and you're looking up at the crest of the waves. So you don't hang around for that. You get around Cape Howe and get some shelter. That's a rig tender buoy. What happens is a rig tender will come out, they'll put their bow line on that buoy, and then they'll screw around and go astern and get another line from the rig, and then a crane just lifts up all their supplies and everything else like that. But when not in use, you can see it's still pretty popular and well used by the seals down there. And the first thing you did when you got there is you held your breath while you approached upwind to the buoy that you latched on, and then you went astern at a good rate, because that tips the buoy over. All the seals go off, but so does all that crap and the rest of the stuff they leave there. And if you've ever smelt it, you never want to again. After that, I went back to Creswell and ran the boat harbour, a shore posting, and it was good because it's actually in Creswell, but doesn't belong to Creswell. It belongs to Jarvis Bay Range Facility. So you can avoid a lot of crap simply because of that. That was a good job, and you get to play 3 rounds of golf a week. The handicap was looking pretty damn good.
What boat's that?
That's Jarvis Bay, the training ship. Ex-Australian trader, so they bought it from trade and fitted it out as a training ship. There's 2 bridges. You can see the wide bridge wings, and there's another row of windows with the 2 whip aerials above it. The one right up the top is the training bridge. So you end up with midshipmen up there trying to run you aground, and you're on the bridge down below trying to keep off the hard. Yeah, few stories there too. That was my last sea posting. After that, I moved to Canberra because I was getting married, and then bounced from desk to desk around Fort Fumble until I paid off in 2002. The one I did forget is first after the patrol boats, instead of going to Creswell, I actually did 18 months as the Deputy Recruiting Officer in New South Wales, which was great because my troops all lived in different Newcastle, Parramatta, Wollongong, and one mob downstairs. But they're the crowd that go out and do the school visits. And seeing as you got to write their reports and all that sort of thing, you know, I got to do quite a few road trips around to places I hadn't been before. So that was good fun too. Questions? Where's JP?
Greg, what did you actually do on the ship? What was your muster? What was your specialty? Like Mr. Entertainment Officer. What was your role?
Well, I was actually what they call a salt horse, unspecialised. So I was just a bridge watchkeeper. And there's another one, other services have probably got it too. I was mainly just SLJO, shitty little jobs officer. So you always get, you know, you can be the boats officer, you'll get a part of ship, either foretop, maintop folks or quarterdeck, you know, for berthing and leaving harbour. You can be blind pilotage officer, which means you do all the navigation in and out of harbour by radar. You can be explosive custodians officer. You can be the secret books officer or registered publications officer. Plus, there's swarms of these sort of jobs that just go on, and you always get lashed up for something. Now, if you want to really know about the Golden River, I'll take you out the back and show you later. Yeah, I think enough people here know about that, so that's all right.
Well, what sort of dragged you to the Navy? You were obviously defence related, Army, Air Force. Why Navy? What was your particular bent?
It wasn't a particular bent. Before I even got into high school, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was join one of the branches of the military. Yeah. So I applied for all three. Got two of them. Picked the Navy. Well, I keep looking at it sometimes and nostalgically and thinking, yeah, that was a good time, wasn't it? Do I miss it? Would I go back? No bloody way. You normally, depending on what size ship you're on, you'll have a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 watchkeepers. But if you're on a ship with a minimum of 3, you never get a full night's sleep. You're either up at 3:30 to do the morning watch. You've got the guts from midnight through to 4, or you've got the first watch, which is from 8 o'clock through to midnight. And you get a watch during the day as well. And when you're not on watch, you're doing one of your shitty little jobs, or you'll be a divisional officer looking after 20 or 30 sailors and all the paperwork and training and sob stories there. So, yeah, you always got your eyes hanging out. When you're actually doing work up, which we did Dubbo coming out of refit, you basically got your ass hanging out the whole time. And we had to go back and fill out a diary of what hours we actually worked. And I thought, how the hell, do I just radar this? And I thought, no, we still got the exercise watch bill. So all the exercises we were doing, plus our watches, and we're on duty on your feet 18 hours a day during that period. So, yeah, when we finally finished and come back into harbour, the first thing you do is not off to the pub, it's into the rack and get some bloody sleep.
If you had night shifts and you're sleeping through the day, but if your rack was in the mess or in a public
No, there's no sleeping during the day.
Right. So you're at the night shift and
Tough.
tough.
Yeah. Remember, there's three. Like if you've got the morning watch, which is the least of it, that's from 4 in the morning through to 8. But the 4 o'clock's when you're supposed to take over. So you've got to be up half an hour before that, get dressed, take a slash, get up to the bridge and do your handover before then. So it's 3:30 or a bit before.
And are they still paying you for a fruity break?
Yes.
I think most of you might be past the maximum age, or they'd be prepared to exclude you just on looks. Yes, Mark.
How effective was the destroyer escorts in their role? If I can ask a question without reaching,
Well, they're all gone now, and they're pretty old. The technology, like they had CCAT missiles, you're just as well off throwing rocks, probably. They weren't very effective. They were fitted with ICARA, which they took out towards the end of their lives, and that I think was quite an effective system. And for those that don't know, it's a rocket-launched drone type thing, which carries a torpedo, and you fly it out to where you think the submarine is, and then it launches the torpedo into the water, and then carries on clear of any interference before splashing. Yes, Steve.
so what's the connection between your career and homeless?
There is none. I'm starting to. I've got one underway. Underway, making way. Yeah.
What's your favourite port of call to give word off?
Let's just say that once you age a bit, your perspective changes. No, but let's say the first couple of trips up top were quite eye-opening. Nicest place is probably New Zealand, but did that on the Jarvis Bay because you get 4 or 5 days to do an astro run from the mainland here to New Zealand. You get in the not Milford, Marlborough Sounds, Queen Charlotte. Lots of navigational stuff there, which is tight without being too tight, and lots of practice. And they'll just pick one little bay here where you start, and the first midshipman takes you to this one over here, drops a pick, then someone else takes over and does the next run, and you just do that for a couple of weeks.
How did you find the transition between duty on ship to desk job work?
Oh, it's just so easy. It is. You almost a civilian. 9 to 5 commute to work like everyone else. None of this watchkeeping shit. That comes at home with your new kids. Okay.
Thank you, Greg. There are not many notes. I'm doing the Benjamin Button thing, but with hair. Yeah, good evening all. For those who don't know me, I'm Craig Stanley. I joined the Navy a little bit after Greg. June 1985 was when I joined as a young 17-year-old. Had spent probably 10 years before that wanting to drive tanks. No fucking idea why when I think back on it, but then my brother joined the Navy before me and I started getting postcards from all over the world. So I thought digging holes or traveling the world wasn't really much of a choice, really. So at 17 and a half, left school halfway through because the Navy told me they were not taking communicators for the next 12 months, which was a blatant lie, as I found out. They took communicators every 6 weeks for the next 20 odd years. So I went down to Cerberus, middle of June from Sydney. Bit of an eye-opener, having to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and run around Cerberus in the middle of winter was not pleasant. Did 3 months of recruit school, went to comm school, which was also at Cerberus. Had thought I was going to be a radio operator, but they were short on ROEW, so radio operator electronic warfare, or gollies, as they're called in the Navy. So I thought, yeah, why not? Had no idea what it did, so it's a good idea at the time. Did 6 months at Cerberus at the comm school, and then another 3 months at HMAS Watson in Sydney, learning the specific golly skills, which is basically just intercepting radar and learning Morse code up to 25 words a minute. And then from there in, was that March 86, went and joined my first ship, which was HMAS Durban, which is number 49, middle on the right there. She was a good ship, had just come out of refit. Much like Greg said, she'd been down in Bass Strait and broken her keel in the rough weather down there. Which, when you think of a ship that's 250 metres long, thereabouts, to snap her back and then limp to Adelaide for a refit, you learn a healthy respect for nature. So I joined her in March. Not 3 weeks later, we did our first up deployment. Massive eye-opener for a young 18-year-old, I can tell you. We did places like Jakarta, Singapore, Manila, Hong Kong, Subic Bay. Lots of workups with different navies, particularly the Brits and out of Hong Kong and the Yanks out of the Philippines. Another eye-opener, working with different navies. Was on her for about 12 months, and then she was due to replace HMS Stewart in Stirling in the west, and they asked who wanted to stay on Stewart and who wanted to stay on Derwent. We just did the swap, exactly the same class ship, so it's just a matter of going up to the upper decks and handing your locker drawers over, and then slotting them back in the locker on the next ship. Stewart did a refit for about 9 months in Coxsackie Island. So once again, like Greg said, I was one of those sailors that was going back and forth from Balmain on the workboat. It was actually a pretty good time doing it. You got to learn the ship really well because you got into tight, dark little places that didn't even know existed. From there, we went back to the west, spent another 2 years in Stirling, which I think only about 4 months of it was actually alongside there. The rest of it was deployed. Came back to the east, joined the training squadron with Jervis Bay as an escort. Spent pretty much 8-9 months just cruising around the Whitsundays, Barrier Reef. It was a tough gig. And we didn't have to do much because we were the warship. Jervis Bay was the one with all the trainees on it. So, It was tough. So I think it was my only claim to fame where I caught a chicken when I was fishing. So we were off Hamilton Island, and I was down the back. So Stuart's the one at the top right there. I was down on one deck aft at the stern. Some of the dibbies, the seaman branch, were up on the bow fishing for sharks using whole frozen chooks. And came off his line and ended up on mine down the arse end. So, yeah. So after that, posted to Nowra, HMAS Albatross. That was our shore posting primarily, to the RAN Tactical Electronic Warfare Support Section, which was, at the time, I was in the communications security team there. So anytime there were exercises, we'd go sit up on Beecroft Peninsula at Jarvis Bay and just either jam, spoof, or intercept their comms. And then post-exercise, tell them where they stuffed up, basically. Did that for about 8 months. And then I saw a signal came out asking for volunteers for language training. That sounds like a good gig. Volunteered for that, not realising it was an entire change of branch. I just thought I'd do language and then go back to doing what I had done. So I went down to Point Cook at the language school there, which was then the RWF School of Languages. Did Indonesian for 11 months, very intensive. It was 5 days a week, 8 hours a day for 11 months. It's pretty full on. But at the end of it, you know, you're a decent linguist. Not a good one, but enough to get by. After that, went to Defence Intelligence Organisation in Canberra here. Did 9 months there while I waited for DSD, Defence Signals Directorate, to move from Melbourne at Vic Barracks up to Canberra. Went over there in January 92. Was there for 7 years. Had a few different deployments while I was there. A couple on patrol boats. Launceston was one. One of the Indonesian patrol boats, did some time on one of those, which was interesting. Not my favourite time of year, was, unless you like karaoke. It was pretty much as soon as we got on board, it was taken down to the wardroom, shoved in front of a television, microphone shoved in your hand and said, sing. And I was there with the gunnery officer from Sea Training Command, and he could not sing. I can't sing, but he was worse. Then 99, went back to Albatross, to Ranchies again. I was home for 5 months. Had Timor. I did 4 deployments to Timor. First one on Success, on Day Dot, which I think you were on as well, Paul. Straight off that, back to Sydney to join Newcastle. Up again, sat off the Enclave at Akusi, working with 3 Battery. I can't remember which regiment they were attached to at the time, but the Army, 3 Battery from the Army. Basically going out doing village surveys. Interesting work, but still a bit hairy at the time. Still militia groups around and things. Came back, did another stint on Success, then back again on Newcastle again. Who else did we do up there? Oh, I did 3 months on USS Kitty Hawk there. When they were traipsing around Southeast Asia, they needed an Indonesian specialist, so I got the TAC for that, which was once again interesting. Going from, I think the biggest ship's company I'd had was about 250. Kitty Hawk has 5,000 in a ship's company. So many, it's classed as the size of a small city, so it has its own postcode. It took me about 2.5 months before I could actually remember my way from the mess deck to the mess where I ate to my working space. without actually getting lost. Working space was right under the steam catapult, so it was pretty noisy. Actually, it was fucking noisy. So, and when you're trying to do, you've got earphones on trying to do SIG in and stuff, having just the catapult going non-stop is just, does your head in after a while. I don't know how they do it all the time. So I came back, did another stint at DSD before January 2004, heading up to the embassy in Jakarta. 3.5 years there. That was probably, very fulfilling, very taxing, quite emotional. We had the embassy bombing in September. There. We had the earthquake, the tsunami in Aceh in December of that year, same year. I was posted there on the second day to liaise with the AGs, the RAF Air Defence Groups came up, and then assist with any of the aircraft coming through for linguistic support. Part of that was also going through all the villages and hospitals, identifying people for medevac. Straight after that, I just got back to Jakarta when the earthquake in Nias happened, which is the top middle one. That was where we put up, and that was the family that looked after us. If you look at the background there, my room is just to the right of that collapsed thing. No power, no water. It was, interesting once again. I just finished that, just got on Chinimbla, and then got the message that Shark 02 had speared in. So it was, luckily I hadn't had time to unpack, so went down, grabbed my bags, straight off up to the village where the aircraft had crashed, and then spent the next 3 months there, I think, with the accident investigation team. Came back to Jakarta, was in Bali when the second Bali bombing occurred. Was supposed to go on a liveaboard dive trip, but that sort of didn't happen. Instead, I went to the airport and welcomed Hercules and anything else that came in to evacuate people. Had a little Johnny visit, had a chat with him.
Yeah,
The
Craig,
obligatory
can you
off-flight.
just tell us a little bit about that? Why did he pop up there?
Well, that was,
He heard there was a camera.
yeah.
No, there was a bit more to it than that.
Well, yeah, that was before. That was just after the embassy bombing. That was just after the embassy bombing.
Yeah.
So he came up to just have a look at the place. Doing the politician thing, I guess. But, I mean, I have to say, he did seem sincere, and he was quite, he asked a lot of good questions and things like that. So
He's one of the better ones.
yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't a bad chat. I've met 4 PMs now, I think, and he was one of the better ones to meet with. After that, so after Jakarta, I felt I needed a rest. I was going to pay off. Navy asked me to stay, said, what can we do? So I said, send me back to the language school. So I went back and did Portuguese this time, because Timor had just got their independence and had chosen Portuguese as their national language. So another intensive language training course there. Bonus was 4 weeks in Portugal as part of the study tour. It was tough, really tough. Although I have to admit, we did a trip down to Madeira as well to spend with the army guys there. Flying in and out of Madeira is an experience because it's just an island in the Atlantic, and it's a very sort of steep or short runway. You come in and you just drop, you land, you hope you don't go off the edge. And yeah, it's a bit disconcerting when the whole crew, our passengers just stand up and start clapping when the aircraft does this stuff. So and then I came back to Canberra, in and out of DSD, did another stint in the embassy when two replacements, two after me, took out an eye in half his hand with a fireworks incident, so I replaced him for 10 months while he was healing, and then paid off in 2012.
What's going on with the haircut?
That was on HMAS Newcastle. So every ship has its own charity that they collect for. Ours was for Canteen in Newcastle. So all the chief petty officers were shaving their head to raise money. So, the other ones, so far right is Jakarta when Warramunga, I think it is, was coming in. Bottom right was Arche doing Medivacs, and bottom left is Anzac Day in Jakarta. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
When we had the club display set up before the gala dinner, you had a citation for your work in Timor?
No, for Jakarta.
Just Jakarta, was it? Tell us a little bit about that.
It was a group bravery citation. There were about, I think, 18 to 20 of the embassy staff that got one, primarily because, after the bomb went off and I secured the vault, then I went out the front to see, if there was any, assistance required. Obviously, there were quite a few wounded, the gardeners in the front, and obviously the civilians out the front. And I think primarily it's just because the people that got it went out without we didn't think about it, but the threat of a secondary device. It wasn't something we thought of at the time.
Something to be proud of. Something to be very proud of.
Yeah, I guess. In retrospect, I think, I'd like to think that, some of they were mostly Indonesians, obviously, the gardeners and the security guards out the front, but some of them suffered horrific injuries. Some died. So, I think there were 11 embassy staff that died that day. 11? So, not ABO, not Australian.
No.
But it's still part of the embassy family. So, see him every day as you come in and out of work. Anyone else? No? Okay. You're up.
Well, I'm the junior one out of the three of us. Hell, I'm still in school when you two joined. Before I get onto these picks, I joined in June of 1993. Like Craig, 3 months at Cerberus before we were gloriously flown up to RAF Base Wagga to start my technical training. I was on one of the first courses for Navy trainees to go through Wagga. That was a 20-month course as a trainee. It was a long stint. When we got to the end of it, towards the end of our course, you're given the option of where you'd like to go. And we were given two, 816 or 817 Squadron. And there was an even split in our course. We had 10 people. And I really wanted to go to Seahawks because I'd done a bit of work experience on them. It was occasionally we went to Albatross and did a bit of work experience on the Seahawks. Unfortunately, there was two individuals on my course that I didn't want to socialise with. So I chose 817. That's just the way life is, isn't it? So I went to 817 Squadron in April of 1995, which included about a 3-month course doing the type conversion, as they call it. So you get to know the ins and outs of that particular machine you have to work on. And from that, you go on to the squadron to help out. Aviation's a little bit different to the rest of the fleet. You have to display a high level of competency on the airframe before you are even deployed. You are usually in a small team. My first deployment was actually to the sunny tropical town of Rockhampton, camping out at the airport. So it was quite glorious in a tent with aircraft taking off from the airfield at all hours. We're in the middle of an exercise with the United States called Tandem Thrust. From there, that was at the start of 1997, and then on to HMAS Tobruk, with this photo's taken with Shark 20. Joined Tobruk in August of 1997. We were going for, well, we had to do workups to start with, which, as Greg was explaining, is quite a lot of work, not a lot of sleep, not a lot of fun. It was for good old Tobruk, or Too Broken, as we called it. It failed on our first workups. So we had to go back in. They had to fix the ship. It wasn't a crew thing, it was a mechanical problems, particularly with the bow doors on the Tobruk. And then we went out and did a workup again, and successfully passed. From there, we were doing a great tropical cruise to Cairns, which was fun, on to Guam, where we spent about 5 days in Guam, which is quite interesting, a lot of fun. Onto an exercise, and then we're going off to Vanuatu to have a Christmas party. Only to be recalled to Sydney to pick up troops to go to Bougainville. So it was the end of 97. So we sailed on to Bougainville with a detachment of Army, particularly Special Forces, to drop them off, and we transferred Shark 20 onto HMAS Success. The evolution you're actually seeing here on the screen is what we call a vertrep, so vertical replenishment. So we place a load out onto the deck, usually past the dotted line, which you can see just there. Helicopter would come in, 2 people would go out. One person, this man here, he would have what we call an earthing wand. So seeking helicopters generate a lot of static, and they generate it very quickly. So the earthing wand was to earth out the helicopter before anyone touched it. We know this because we were told a very good story of how quickly it builds up. A very senior sailor, we had a helicopter come in with only one green light for the undercarriage down. So the procedure for that is, on the undercarriage of the Sea King, we've got what we call the drag link just behind the main wheel, and you can put a pin in to lock it in. That makes it safe. So the helicopter called in, we've only got one green light. We don't know if it's down locked, so can someone come out and put the pin in? So we quickly grabbed the pins, ran out onto the hard stand, ran up to the helicopter, touched it, got blown back from the static. It physically pushes you to the ground. And he thought, oh, great, it's discharged now. Got back up, did it again. Went to go for a third try until someone had run out already and grabbed him by the collar. Said, stop, I've got the wand. So yeah, we were told that. I think every trainee was told that one. From HMAS Tobruk, I then transferred onto HMAS Success after I got back from East Timor. This is still Tobruk. So this evolution is here what we call a HIFA, or a helicopter in-flight refueling. It's an exercise we regularly conducted, partly to keep the aircrew current, because it's an evolution they had to know how to do. And essentially, the time you would use this is if your landing deck has been fouled, or you're fueling from a ship that doesn't have a flight deck, or refueling, or a flight deck, essentially. So essentially, we would winch the refueling nozzle up with the winch, the personnel winch. Aircrew would hook it in to the fueling point, which is just here on the side of the cargo door. And some poor soul would have to go down 3 or 4 decks into a smelly, tight, hot compartment and push a boost button for the pressure to put the fuel into the helicopter. So this is HMAS Brook on the way back from Bougainville. We caught the tail end of a cyclone in North Queensland. True. I didn't mind it, but it was a shorter queue than the scram line, I can tell you that. Yeah, I didn't get good enough photos, but we did have the water breaking over the helicopter control office, which was just below the bridge onto Brook. Some wary photos, I guess, if you like. This was over in the west. In early '98, we went to Western Australia for an exercise over there. These 3 vessels we actually were the day that HMAS Australia caught fire, tragically. We were doing refueling exercises with the DDG and I forget which frigate, but one of them, when we got word through that West Australia had a safeguard fire, missing 4 souls, and they needed the ship's doctor. So we had to launch our helo with our doctor on board to get to HMAS Australia. They're only about 30 nautical miles away. The FFG that was behind us, we watched them turn tail to provide assistance as well, and they went full power. That was impressive to see. Too busy to get a photo of it though. Later in '98, we went off to RIMPAC. This was a refueling exercise with the USS Guadalupe, one of the Cimarron class auxiliary refuelers that the United States Navy ran. Small US Navy crew with a largely contracted workforce on board, operating the rigs and the engine room. On the other side of it, you can just see it, is the USS Constellation. So just this is just a sequence of photos of basically our Sea King landing on board. I forgot which boat that is. Help. Number 3, okay, 03. FFGs were getting towards marginal for the Sea King to land on, hence they were never really deployed on them. As you can probably see in this bottom photo here, your disc arc is starting to get towards the hangar and the helicopter control. We did have an incident once. One of our Sea Kings was flying off Jarvis Bay on a night exercise, and invariably we'd have in the tail rotor gearbox towards the back of the aircraft, you've got chip detectors through all your gearboxes to tell you if you've got too much metal wear essentially in your gearboxes. The tail rotor gearbox sensors tend to be a little bit overly sensitive or faulty quite a few times, and they'd get basically the warning light. So they declare a pan, find the nearest deck and land on. For that particular night, the nearest deck was an FFG. That is Sydney. Yep. So they landed on, sailed into Jervis Bay, where some of our maintainers were taken out by RIB to the FFG, jump on board, fix the fault, and everyone piles in to take off, come back to Albatross. 817 Squadron always had a US Navy exchange pilot on board. The exchange pilot was flying that night, and he was told quite sternly not to drift forward when taking off. Our senior pilot, was heard screaming at him as they were taking off about drifting forward. Back to RIMPAC. The good thing with RIMPAC is you get to do a lot of touring around. Some people went to Maui or the Big Island. A couple of us, we went for a bit of a tour around, and we went to, back in the days before security was really a big thing, we went to Wheeler Army Air Base, and we were allowed to go and see. So these are AH-1Fs, the Cobras. This lovely warrant officer, Army warrant officer, took us on a tour. And it's quite amazing. As you can see in the background here, there are quite a lot of helicopters. I think they had about 20 Chinooks over the other side of the airfield at that point. It was impressive to see. And he gave us a good tour around, showing us all the battle damage from that infamous day in 1941. The bottom left is obviously the USS Missouri. That is about 3 days after she pulled alongside there, after her last. We got to watch her for a final trip into Pearl Harbor from a distance. But yeah, she's an impressive ship, and I'm sure quite a few have probably gone on since that time. Back out to sea for the actual RIMPAC exercise. So USS Carl Vinson was the carrier for the exercise. Top left, you'll see good old Shark 10 doing a transfer onto the Carl Vinson. She was picking up photographers. So at the start of every exercise, we have this shot is of a US Navy CH-46C landing on. That was during the RIMPAC exercise in '98. In 1999, we learned that C9s weren't supposed to land on success. Oops. And doing a replenishment, or a vertrack. Slightly different with these ones because it wasn't a dangerous cargo. You don't always have to have an earthing strop. And we're using it's basically a piece of polypipe, right through a polypipe. There's an extension lead, and you smack it onto the cargo hook on down underneath. These aircraft do have quite a lot of downwash, so it's like running into a cyclone to get underneath it, and then you start running quite well once you get onto the body of the aircraft. And then later, so 1999, we did do quite a few trips in 1999. As compared to 1998, the only trips we did was Hawaii and each capital on the coast of Australia. So that was interesting. In 1999, we did Singapore, Guam, Saipan, Jakarta. We were in Jakarta actually 3 weeks prior to their general election and the referendum on East Timor. They take voting very seriously in Jakarta. when you see sandbagged, at the major intersections you see sandbags and armoured cars and 50 cars. But probably early on, I didn't put any photos here deliberately, we also assisted in the recovery of the F-111 that crashed off Malaysia at Pulau Au for Shorty and Nige, which is, yeah, it's quite a sobering experience, and you get to understand that we do, when you are operational, it can be a dangerous job, and the consequences can be pretty rough. Fast forward to September. So HMAS Success was deployed on the very first day of Interfed. So September 19. So what you see here is some of the smoke from Dili. We sailed off the coast of Dili for quite a bit, did a racetrack pattern essentially. And it got quite smoky. However, the sunsets up there, as you can see, are just fantastic. That's just a straight photo. And this is a big statue of Jesus, I believe, off to the east of Dili. One landmark you can pick out quite easily. Some of the ships we got to see. So the top left, even though it's a silhouette, it is HMAS Anzac. It was one of our primary escorts. Occasionally we'd get some ships trying to come a bit too close to Success when we're anchored in Dili Harbour, and we'd watch Anzac come racing in as our saviour. We also did a fair bit of, the aircrew did a fair bit of gunnery practice, just in case. So we had an A58 mounted in the cargo door. Bottom left is the short career of HMAS Giles Bay. And I forgot what the Strong's class. But it just shows you how much of a battering these boats can take. Going from hard days to the harder days. This is one day in early 2000, it's much to my surprise going to work. Having to find that your work area is now a film set for aerobics style. No, I'm there.
Were they conscripts or volunteers?
Volunteer.
Oh, do you think people would have to be conscripted to do this? Mind you, they did make us do push-ups, and they beat the crap out of us, I can tell you. These were very fit individuals, trust me. They started before 8 o'clock in the morning and filmed through about 4 o'clock, with only short breaks between about 45 minutes or 50 minutes of filming. Yeah, quite good. That's it.
Good slide sleeve.
Sorry?
Good slide sleeve.
Yes. These are the hard days. Yeah, so I got out of the Navy in the middle of 2000. After 7 years, decided I had enough. Yeah, unfortunately at that time the cycle was, I was lucky enough to do almost 3 years at sea, which was, for aviation mechanics, quite a long time. Usually you'd get 12 to 24 months if you're lucky. And then basically it was, the choices were back to the squadron on promotion or back to the squadron on promotion. It was largely doing the same thing. I wasn't interested. So I went to the airline industry instead. Any questions?